On this black rock I shall build my church.
As the 20th century unfolded, the corporations set about influencing everything in their wake. Since then, there has been a constant battle between the rights of the common man and the expansive nature of the corporation. Corporations see humans as a resource commodity, with no other value than economic. The whole nature of the corporation is psychopathic, with no empathy for humanity, expanding and consuming as it grows, regardless of consequence. The corporations have now grown into international monsters, some having greater profits than the GDP of small nations. They swallow up local businesses, land, communities, and assets, morphing into beasts that our ancestors fought vigorously to restrain. They now finance most political parties, crushing the labor movements, which were set up as a countermeasure to ensure fairness and equality. They attack and subvert regulation, allowing them greater scope for expansion and exploitation. Their tentacles have spread into nearly every area of modern life, influencing education, health, justice, entertainment, and even spirituality. The new pecking order is the banks, the corporations, the government, then the people. The corporations have the best lawyers and enough wealth to disregard local laws which attempt to restrict their rapacious activities. They pay private police and armies to put down dissent amongst workers and to bully communities, essentially becoming a new form of oligarch. We are now living in a corporateocracy where consumerism has become the new religion, with the television and the mainstream media acting as an altar to which victims are preyed upon and sacrificed into debt. Political candidates are elected by the citizens but ruled by armies of corporate lobbyists, passing whatever legislation is needed to keep the money rolling in. Franklin D. Roosevelt made a speech on April the 29th, 1938, a message to Congress. The first truth is that the liberty of a democracy is not safe if the people tolerate the growth of private power to a point where it becomes stronger than their democratic state itself. That, in its essence, is fascism. Ownership of government by an individual, by a group, or by any other controlling private power. The second truth is that the liberty of a democracy is not safe if its business system does not provide employment and produce and distribute goods in such a way as to sustain an acceptable standard of living. Franklin D. Roosevelt. We essentially live within a huge corporation. Behind the scenes, the global corporate control system is co-owned either at board level or at shareholder level. It could be argued that through co-ownership of all the key corporations, the entire global structure is one giant corporation, the owners of which are likely to be the same group who own and control the major private central banks.
There's a good chance you've never heard of BlackRock. Founded in only 1988, in less than 30 years, this American financial firm would grow to become the company that owns the world, managing assets worth $6.3 trillion. These are assets that belong to their clients, mainly the pension funds of ordinary people, teachers, police officers, nurses, and many more. And that's just the beginning. BlackRock has also developed a software platform called Aladdin to perform risk analysis for its clients. It receives sensitive data from banks, insurance companies, and other important institutions. Through Aladdin, BlackRock has insights about the management of financial assets worth another $20 trillion. BlackRock also has shares and voting rights in many of the biggest European companies, in sectors such as energy, oil and gas, transportation, food, and of course, finance. The company holds public debt in the form of bonds and has real estate interests. And still, there's more. Our Rock, you see, wears many hats. Aside from being an investor, it is also an auditor and an advisor. Governments and central banks invite a BlackRock subsidiary called BlackRock Solutions to audit them and to provide advice about the management and rescue of banks. Yet at the same time, BlackRock is often a major shareholder in these same banks. In other words, the company often sits on both sides of the table. BlackRock Solutions gets privileged access to highly sensitive information that could be valuable to BlackRock itself. Does this constitute a conflict of interest? No, says BlackRock, which claims that the company has established Chinese walls between its different subsidiaries. In January 2018, BlackRock's founder and chairman, Larry Fink, sent a letter to all of the CEOs of the companies BlackRock is invested in, asking them to do more than deliver financial performance and make a positive contribution to society. So BlackRock not only owns the world, it also wants to save it?
As we move into the new age of Aquarius, Saturn, the planet of control, order, materialism, and restriction, becomes the traditional ruler of the age. Saturn rules over rocks and stones and is the planet of choice favored by Judaism. Saturn has 62 moons, one of which is known as Mimas, closely resembling the Death Star in Star Wars, which symbolizes absolute corporate control over humanity.
You Earthlings will obey all my commands. The dark force within the Empire is strong, and those who resist will be eliminated.
Is it the case that these big international corporations are no longer reacting to global events, but the drivers behind them?
Welcome back to Squawk Box and big news from BlackRock this morning. The company's CEO, Larry Fink's annual letter is out, and the world's largest asset manager now announcing the firm will make investment decisions with environmental sustainability at its core. Fink's annual letter to the CEOs is the subject of my column this morning. In that letter, Fink writes the following. He says, the evidence on climate risk is now compelling investors to reassess core assumptions of modern finance. And in the near future, and sooner than most anticipate, there will be a significant reallocation of capital. Yesterday, I sat down with Larry Fink and talked to him about why he is doing this now and what it means for municipalities, some of which may be his clients, where fossil fuels are a major component of the local economy. Here's what he had to say.
The climate change is going to require a huge energy transition. It's going to be 40 or 50 years. So we're not running away. We need to have an organized plan for those countries. There are countries, too, that are heavily based on hydrocarbons. For those countries, for those states, for those municipalities, our job is to inform them what we are seeing as an asset allocation. We are not running away from all hydrocarbons because we do believe they play a role. We believe natural gas plays a very large role in the energy transition. And so we believe this is a process, not just, we're not stopping. We did make a statement that coal is not a good investment now. But the most important thing is through that transparency, our job is to provide better risk analytics, better risk-adjusted returns with a sustainability.
But your letter effectively suggests that long-term fossil fuels will not be a good investment.
We believe in most cases fossil fuels will not be a good investment. But we are not saying they're not a bad investment today either. We believe over time we are going to see this energy transition. And some of the biggest energy companies are in the forefront of renewables and working towards that. So this is not a black or white, and we're not making a black or white statement related to any of the, I would say, the fossil fuel companies. What we want these companies to do is to provide more transparency and move forward towards that.
The Trump administration has a very different view about climate change. It doesn't believe it right now. What do you tell members of the administration, politicians who don't believe in climate change about what you are now trying to do?
I believe we need to have a conversation with every government in the world, including our government, to be better prepared for this. I believe we need to be spending large sums of money on infrastructure to be more prepared for this. I believe there's more and more science that it is proving that climate change is real and having a very large impact. I also believe that if we are going to be fair and just, we need to also focus on this transition. Many people are going to be left behind with this transition. We need to make sure, and this is unfortunately with government officials, they're focusing on more of the short term at times than the long term. What I'm talking about is a long-term trend that is going to have a remarkable impact on valuations of companies, valuations of industries, and we believe there are going to be some industries that are going to be better prepared. Some companies in the energy mix will be better prepared, and those are the type of companies we're going to be investing in. So we're not running away from those companies, but we want better transparency on how companies are becoming more prepared for this.
It is obvious that we are in the midst of the most severe crisis the world has experienced since World War II. 75 years ago, countries and people came together to shape the post-war global order, which brought us decades of peace, increased global cooperation, and prosperity to hundreds of millions of people around the world. The COVID-19 crisis has shown us that our old systems are not fit anymore for the 21st century. It has laid bare the fundamental lack of social cohesion, fairness, inclusion, and equality. Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight severe virus, but to shape the system for the need for the post-corona era. We have a choice to remain passive, which would lead to the amplification of many of the trends we see today: polarization, nationalism, racism, and ultimately increased social unrest and conflicts. But we have another choice. We can build a new social contract, particularly integrating the next generation. we can change our behavior to be in harmony with nature again. And we can make sure that the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution are best utilized to provide us with better lives. In short, we need a great reset.
On this black rock I shall build my church.